Hi, this is Danny J. Lewis, also known as Enzyme Black, and I'm a course developer and tutor here at Point Blank Online. So this week's beat making video is going to be all about this slowed down disco house kind of flavor. People like the Revenge and Tornado Wallace, who is a DJ that's going to be playing at our night at the Horse and Groom tomorrow night. This is the kind of style that they play. So we're going to take an old tune, we're going to cut it up and then arrange it in a different way, present it differently, twist it up on the Novation Launchpad. Be aware if you're going to do this for yourselves that there are legal implications if you're going to be using a sample. So make sure you get them clear if you're going to put something out. But you might want to think about this more as a way of getting an exclusive re-edit for your DJ set. So that's the kind of angle that we're going to be going on today. So the first thing to consider is the track that you want to use, and bear in mind, the whole thing about tempo. We're going to be looking at a track that we want about 110 to 115 BPM, somewhere around that range. So if we're going to be picking a tune that's about 135 BPM, then there's going to be a lot of time stretching involved and the signal is going to sound pretty poor. So try to get your tracks quite closely matched if you can, and that's one of the main considerations. The other things to think about when we actually start moving is that some of these old tunes would have been live, so there'd be some real band members playing, so that means it's going to be not locked into a quantized grid, so we need to consider some issues. Now the tune that I've selected is a bit of a wedding mobile DJ classic. It's Shalamar, Night to Remember, and it's a real old school tune that has got a good vibe, but it's a very commercial tune, but I want to try to make this a bit more underground and stripped back and dubby. So Shalamar, Night to Remember. Half of you are probably cringing at the moment, but I'm just going to drag it in and just see how live actually picks this up and see how it analyzes it and where it places the beginning of the actual track and so on. So you can see it's put some warp markers in. Let's try to suss stuff out. There's probably some fluctuating tempo stuff going on, and just want to see what's going on with this. Just going to play. Okay, now look, this feels that it's probably going to be somewhere around here. I'm going to set one over here. There we go. That's pretty good. Let me put the click on. Okay, just going to get a little bit of a loop vibe and see what's happening. At the moment it's 100. I'm going to go faster. Maybe I'm going to try about 115. Yeah, I think that could be good. You can see here the snares are locking down pretty well. I'm just wondering how good this is later on as well. We might need to make some adjustments. It's worked at 109.3. I'm wondering if I type 109, if it improves things. It does a little bit. I think it's more likely to be 109. Just going to see later on. What I'm going to do is I'm going to focus on stuff as we go, to be honest. I think that's the best we can do at the moment. At the beginning it looks nice and tight, except for a couple of elements here where it's drifting a bit. I'm just going to see if I could pull that back. And this one here, I mean, we could go for a really clean loop. Let's see how that feels. Okay, that's cool. But what I don't want to do is to make it so obvious that it's playing the complete thing. I'd be looking at building up some sections, maybe something like this. Let's take that click off. So something like that's quite good because we could disguise it. I could maybe even put my own bass line on it. And so what I'm going to do is I'm going to make this like number 1. Just going to duplicate that. And so we can now play this and move forward. I don't want that. Let's see how this sounds to the other one. Very similar. I like that. This is a really nice little vibe. So, I'm doing this for speed because once again, against the clock, we've got a 15-minute window to get this whole thing done. So I'm just going to duplicate that. Just going to move to the next one. Let's try and find somewhere else. Sorry, let me trigger the right clip. That's quite a nice little loop. What I'm going to do is just drag this back here for the moment. This is a duplicate, remember. That's a nice little vibe. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to duplicate this one. I should be doing the numbers as I go, really. I'm just going to get a right mess if I don't do this. So as I said, working against the clock here. Let's get this 4th one. Let's have a listen. There's something quite nice about that. Do you know what? I'm going to keep that. Let's duplicate that. Let's rename. Let's call this 5. Let's move forward. You never know what's going to work, you know. And the great thing about Live and the Launchpad is that we could get these triggered and just play around with them, vibe on them. Let's come back to this clip. This is interesting because the start is here and then it's cycling back over there. You get some nice little vibes with Live working that way. But I'm going to move forward. That could be handy. Just going to see how it sounds with the others. Not sure now. I'm going to move to another one, maybe over here. Very similar to the last ones. That's quite interesting, but I think it's going to be more likely to be this. Not sure. Almost like too recognizable from the original. Trying to go for something a little bit different. And that's the same as well. And at the moment we've got no bass line. You know, this is the 12-inch mix. There's plenty of stripped down bits. It's all similar to what I've got already, so I might move a fair amount forward and see what we got later on. Interesting vibe with the bass line, but I've got a funny feeling I might actually want to put my own on here, you know. Actually, do you know what? When I'm hearing that, I'm really vibing on that because it's got the strings, the bass, there's a nice little groove here. And what you want to do whilst you're doing this is to basically set up an effect. Like the auto filter, get a feel for how it might sound filtered down. These are all the kind of vibes that work really well in a club, of course. And maybe a bit of envelope. Let's try the others. I think we've got some potential here. So I need to move forward with this. Let me duplicate that. Let's just take a look. Let's rename this 6. And I've got a nice little groove going on there. I think I need some bass line action on a similar basis to the chords that I've got already. Let's have a look on here. And that could be quite good. Flip to the other. You know what I'm feeling is that I need to move this. So I'm going to hold down Command. You see we've got these warp markers that appear either side. I'm going to bring this over to try and make it groove in the same way as the previous one. That's better. I love that little kind of fill that's occurring there with this, almost like a reverse kind of vibe with the snare. And then back. Right, I think we've got the basis of the main groove there. I'm just going to copy those to the same color. So these I'm not so sure about now. But you know what? That's a nice little flip. So that's the scope. You know what I'm going to need to do is to basically go off camera and get a whole bunch of these done. I'll review them afterwards because, as I said, we're stuck with this 15-minute time limit. There's no point me really trying to rush this. So I'm going to go away, grab some of these kind of loops from other parts of the tune and gather them together as a series of clips that I can then perform into the sequencer using the Launchpad. So after experimenting with some different sections, this is what I've ended up with. I've got a selection of elements from the original tune here. I've tuned them all -2 semitones on transpose to try and distance themselves a little bit from the original there. I've got some additional percussive elements here. I've got some fills as well, and these are on their own. They're designed as a big contrast to the other sections. I've color coded to try and give myself a little visual vibe on this. And let me just show you the first sections. These are actually from the previous part of the video, and the others are new bits. And I sacked some of the other ones that you saw before because I didn't really feel that they were actually bringing much for this being a new track. Okay, so here we go. Switching between them. Could easily switch between them like that, or moving forward. And then on two. And this one's the same, but I've got some extra elements here. So I was kind of fleshing out some ideas in terms of what I thought might work, but I'm going to try it and also get some variations using the Launchpad recorded in. The fills themselves, let me just solo here. Short loop brace. And I'll show you here. This is how I did it, of course. So the same copied down, just with a shorter loop brace setting. These are running through a delay, so it's got a nice kind of dubby flavor. The drums and elements here, I'll take you through some of these. These are programmed, so this is the DMX kit. It's a drum rack from the Ableton library. Take solo off here. Let me just trigger some of these. Bongos from the Point Blank sample library. There's a tambourine there. Hi-hats from the DMX. Every now and again you'll hear the claps as well from the DMX. Let's go to another one. There's the DMX claps. And then I can go to the fill. So you get the vibe anyway. So I record this in, and also on the loops here I've got a low pass filter mapped to my MIDI keyboard. I'll record some of that stuff in too. I'm going to change the global quantization to something smaller. Let's go for every beat. So there's going to be more scope when I'm switching the scenes. And also we're going to double click to get the sequencer back to the beginning. Push record, and let's see what happens. So I'm going to stop there because of the limited time, but you can see what's happened here. Everything that I recorded on the Launchpad has been put into this. There were a couple of areas where I think I could have done a little bit better, so I can easily go back and change those. But that's a real nice approach to getting that real slow down, deep, dubby disco kind of flavor.